God bless y'all. Sorry, I'm running a little behind, but let me get my notes out. These are all my notes, y'all. So good to take notes. I'm telling y'all, they come in handy. Like when you have questions, and not even questions. Like if you somehow forget or just need a little refresher, and it helps me to remember when I write it down. So we're going to start with Numbers chapter. We're going over Numbers chapter 31 through 33. Starting with chapter 31, verse 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Avenge the children of Israel of the Midianites. Afterward shalt thou be gathered unto thy people. And Moses spake unto the people, saying, Arm some of yourselves unto the war, and let them go against the Midianites, and avenge the Lord of Midian. Of every tribe 1,000 throughout all the tribes of Israel shall you send to war. And y'all remember it was 12 tribes. So, verse 5, so there were delivered out of the thousands of Israel 1,000 of every tribe, 12,000 armed for war. And Moses sent them to war, 1,000 of every tribe, them and Phinehas, forgive me if I pronounce words wrong, Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the priest, to the war with the holy instruments and the trumpet to blow in his hand. Y'all, verses 1 through 6 is when God commands Israel to fight Midian. It were 12,000 soldiers, 1,000 per tribe. And the Midianites had deliberately led Israel into idolatry and sexual immorality at Baal Peor. And this is in Numbers chapter 25, if y'all remember that. The previous videos for Numbers are on my social media, or you can check out my link tree. They're all over the social media, the previous chapters. But they caused them, the Israelites, to die under God's judgment. God was executing judgment on persistent rebellion and protecting Israel from continual spiritual corruption. The lesson from this is sin has consequences, and God takes idolatry serious. He does. Verse 7, and they warred against the Midianites as the Lord commanded Moses, and they slew all the males, meaning, all the males. And they slew the kings of Midian, beside the rest of them that were slain, namely Evi and Rechem and Zur and Hur and Reba, 5 kings of Midian. Balaam also the son of Bor they slew with the sword. And the children of Israel took all the women of Midian captives and their little ones, and took the spoil of all their cattle and all their flocks and all their goods. In verse 8, y'all, Balaam was killed during battle. Although he couldn't curse Israel, he later advised the Midianites to tempt Israel into sin through idolatry and immorality. And that's in, chapter 31, verse 16. We didn't get to verse 16 yet. Going to, which one was I at? In verse 10, and they burnt all the cities wherein they dwelt, and all their goodly castles with fire. And they took all the spoil and all the prey, both men and the beasts, which are like the animals, the cattle, everything like that. And they brought the captives and the prey and the spoil unto Moses and Eleazar the priest, and unto the congregation of the children of Israel, unto the camp at the plains of Moab, which are by Jordan near Jericho. Y'all know the promised land, their promised land is Canaan. And the Lord had promised them this land. He promised their fathers, and Jericho is the first major city in the promised land. Verse 13, and Moses and Eleazar the priest and all the princes of the congregation went forth to meet them without the camp. And Moses was wroth with the officers of the host, with the captains over thousands and captains over 100, which came from the battle. And Moses said unto them, have ye saved all the women alive? Behold, these caused the children of Israel through the counsel of Balaam to commit trespass against the Lord in the matter of Peor. And there was a plague amongst the congregation of the Lord. In verse 17, now therefore kill every male among the little ones, and kill every woman that hath known man by lying with him. But all the women, children that have not known a man by lying with him, keep alive for yourselves. Now, when we going over this verses 13 through 18, Moses, he gets mad at the soldiers, y'all. He basically rebukes the soldiers. The soldiers had spared the Midianite women, and they weren't supposed to. Now, because these were the same women that had enticed Israel to worship Baal-peor and commit the sexual immorality. So Moses was wroth with them, angry. The lesson in this is partial obedience is still disobedience. You know how some people you tell someone not to do something, or we know God's laws, or we know the commandments. We know what we're supposed to do and what we are not supposed to do. But some people, it's a little gray area. There's no gray area. It's a right and it's a wrong. And some people, partial obedience is still disobedience. Anywho, going to verse 19, and do ye abide without the camp 7 days. Whosoever hath killed any person, and whosoever hath touched any slain, purify both yourselves and your captives on the 3rd day and on the 7th day. Now, y'all know back in the Old Testament, the Old Covenant, there were different things that made a person unclean, and you could not come within the camp. It was 7 days, and there was different methods in how to cleanse yourself. And verse 20 says, and purify all your raiments, which is your clothes and stuff, and all that is made of skins, and all work of goat's hair, and all things made of wood. Verses 21 says, and Eleazar, the priest, said unto the men of war which went to battle, this is the ordinance of the law which the Lord commanded Moses. Only the gold and the silver, the brass, the iron, the tin, and the lead, everything that may abide the fire, ye shall make it go through fire, and it shall be clean. Nevertheless, it shall be purified with the water of separation. And all that abideth not the fire, ye shall make go through water. Verse 24 says, and ye shall wash your clothes on the 7th day, and ye shall be clean, and afterwards ye shall come into the camp. So, thank you, Lima. In verses 19 through 24, y'all, purification was mandated. Unstable connection. It was mandated after battle. The soldiers, the captives, the clothing, and objects captured in battle were purified before returning into camp. Oh, yes. Okay, let me try to stay on track, y'all. I'm sorry if I don't read the comments right now. Okay, contact with deceased bodies caused ceremonial uncleanliness. The lesson in verses 19 through 24 is holiness matters. Holiness matters. If you were unclean, you had to stay outside the camp to not, corrupt anyone else. Let's move along. Okay, I need to keep my finger where I was at, y'all, because I keep losing my spot when I turn away. Verse 25 says, and the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, take the sum of the prey that was taken, both of man and of beast, thou and Eleazar the priest and the chief fathers of the congregation, and divide the prey into 2 parts between them that took the war upon them, who went out to battle, and between all the congregation. And Levi, a tribute unto the Lord, levy a tribute unto the Lord of the men of war which went out to battle, 1 soul of 500, both of the persons, and of the beeves, and of the asses, y'all know those were donkeys, and of the sheep. Take it of their half, and give it to Eleazar the priest for an heave offering of the Lord. And the children of Israel's half, thou shalt take 1 portion of 50 of the persons of the beeves. Now, beeves is a horned cattle. That's all that is. Of the asses and of the flocks, of all manner of beasts, and give them unto the Levites, which keep the charge of the tabernacle unto the Lord. Now, y'all, just a quick reminder. Y'all remember the promised land was supposed to be split into halves, split into portions for every tribe besides the Levites, because God chose the Levites to take care of the tabernacle. Okay? Verse 31, and Moses and Eleazar the priest did as the Lord commanded Moses. And the booty, being the rest of the prey which the men of war had caught, was 600,000 and 70,000 and 5,000 sheep, and 312,000 beeves. A score is 20, so 60, is 60. And 1,000 asses, and 32,000 persons in all, of women that had not known man by lying with them, which are virgins. Verse 36 says, and the half which was the portion of them that went out to war was in number 300,000 and 30,000 and 500 sheep. Now, when y'all get to these numbers, sometimes it may seem backwards, but it makes sense. Now, this number is a number 300,000 and 30,000, so 37,500 sheep. Yeah, 300,000, 37,500 sheep. And the Lord's tribute of the sheep was 615. So 615. So you got 600, 60, that's 60, and 15, 75. 375. And the beeves were 36,000, of which the Lord's tribute was 12. 60 plus 12 is 72. And the asses were 30,500, of which the Lord's tribute was 61. And of the persons were 16,000, of which the Lord's tribute was 32 persons. And Moses gave the tribute, which was the Lord's heave offering, unto Eleazar the priest, as the Lord commanded Moses. And of the children of Israel's half, which Moses divided from the men that warred. Verse 43 says, now the half that pertained unto the congregation was 300,000, 30,000, and 7,500 sheep, and 36,000 beeves. Remember, beeves are horned cattle, and 30,000 asses, and 500 donkeys. Okay, and 16,000 persons. Verse 47 says, even of the children of Israel's half, Moses took one portion of 50, both of man and of beast, and gave them unto the Levites, which kept the charge of the tabernacle of the Lord. And the Lord commanded Moses. Now, reading through verses 25 through 47 can be quite much. Dividing these verses talks about dividing the spoils. God told Moses to divide them, the things that they took captives from the Midianites, to count and divide everything that was captured in battle. The soldiers and the rest of Israel were to share equally, and a portion was dedicated to the Lord. Everything we have ultimately belongs to the Lord. Okay, we're moving on. Verse 48. And the officers which were over 1,000 of the host, the captains of thousands and captains of hundreds, came near unto Moses. And they said unto Moses, thy servants have taken the sum of the men of war which are under our charge, and there lacketh not one man of us. We have therefore bought an oblation. An oblation is an offering presented to God in worship. That's what that is, for the Lord. What every man have gotten of jewels, of gold, chains and bracelets, rings, earrings, and tablets, to make an atonement for our souls before the Lord. And Moses and Eleazar the priest took the gold of them, even all wrought jewelry. And all the gold of the offerings that they offered up to the Lord of the captains of thousands and of the captains of hundreds was 16,750 shekels. For the men of war had taken spoil, every man for himself. And Moses and Eleazar the priest took the gold of the captains of thousands and of hundreds, and brought it into the tabernacle of the congregation for a memorial for the children of Israel before the Lord. Reading all this, the military officers, they basically voluntarily bought gold as an offering. Every Israelite soldier survived the battle, and they wanted to thank God. The lesson in this is, that's really good. They went to war, and not now soldier was lost by the wayside. So victory should always produce gratitude and worship. Moving on to chapter 32. Now the children of Reuben and the children of Gad had a very great multitude of cattle. And when they saw the land of Jazer and the land of Gilead, that behold, the place was a place for cattle. Y'all know Reuben was the oldest brother. And I printed out something real quick on the show. I guess it didn't print, y'all. It didn't print. Next time I'll have it up and I'll try to share my screen with it. Or I'll just put it on my link tree and the PDFs, the free downloads of PDFs. So, verse 2, the children of Gad and the children of Reuben came and spake unto Moses and to Eleazar the priest, and unto the princes of the congregation, saying, Adaroth and Dibon and Jazar and Nimrar and Heshbon and Eliah and Sheben and Nebo and Beon, even the country which the Lord smote before the congregation of Israel, is a land for cattle, and thy servants have cattle. Wherefore said they, if we have found grace in thy sight, let this land be given unto thy servants for a possession, and bring us not over Jordan. Y'all, verses 1 through 5. Now the Israelites, they were near the promised land, but they had to cross over the Jordan to get to the promised land. So Reuben and the rest of the children of Gad, and Reuben, Gad, and it was another one, which I just read, but they had a lot of cattle. They had a lot of cattle from the previous battle. So they basically asked Moses, if you take, give us a little grace and let us have this land. We don't have to occupy, we don't have to go over Jordan and go to the promised land. This is some good land right here for all of our cattle. Let me finish. I don't want to get ahead of myself, y'all, and spoil it. But verse 6 says, and Moses said unto the children of Gad and to the Reuben and to the children of Reuben, shall your brethren go to war, and shall ye sit here? So he basically questioning them, because Reuben and Gad was, can we just stay here? We don't have to cross over Jordan. So Moses telling them, so y'all gonna let the rest of y'all brothers just go to war and y'all just want to stay here? Verse 7 says, and wherefore discourage ye the heart of the children of Israel from going over the land which the Lord hath given them. Thus did your fathers when I sent them for Kadesh Barnea to see the land. For when they went up into the valley of Eshcol and saw the land, they discouraged the heart of the children of Israel, that they should not go into the land which the Lord had given them. Y'all remember when they sent the spies over to see the land, and the Lord said that land floweth with milk and honey, but two of the spies came back. They were positive. They were like, hey, God said that he would go to war with us. He would fight our battles for us. There's no need to fret. But all the rest of the spies that went over basically came back and kind of diminished the spirits of the rest of the Israelites, saying, oh, there's giants over there and there's this, and they were just so negative. But anywho, verse 10, and the Lord's anger was kindled at the same time. Let me make sure that's the verse I'm on. Yeah. And the Lord's anger was kindled the same time, and he sware, saying, where I'm at, surely none of the men that came up out of Egypt from 20 years old and upward shall see the land which I swear unto Abraham, unto Isaac, and unto Jacob, because they have not wholly followed me. Ain't that something, y'all? That's something. He basically told them from 20 years old and upward, none of y'all going to the promised land that I promised y'all. Y'all will never see it. So God spoke and said, save Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, and Kenizzite, and Joshua, the son of Nun. Those were the two spies that came back. And they were basically, they had faith in God that God would fight their battle. Y'all know God is not a man that he can lie. He's not going to lie. He's not a liar. These were the only two that came back and had the faith of, and they believed what God said would happen. So God told them, none of y'all will see the promised land. The only ones that will see it, and the children of them, is Caleb and Joshua. So anywho, verse 13, and the Lord's anger was kindled against Israel, and he made them wander in the wilderness 40 years until all the generation that had done evil in the sight of the Lord was consumed. We're going to take a little break from that, y'all, and just ponder on this one, because they were right there. They were right there. All the lack of faith, the disobedience, the idolatry, the immorality they were doing, they wandered in the wilderness for 40 years because of that. Now, that causes me to think, like, how we go through things and we can get a word from God. We can get he can send us a dream. He can send us the prophet, the preacher, the church will tell us, or we can read it. Just have faith. Have faith. But then y'all know, we like to complain. We like to, this is this. And y'all remember the Israelites. They were slaves in Egypt. And all this time they complaining, well, why would God bring us out of Egypt? Egypt was the land that flowed with milk and honey. Egypt didn't flow with no milk and honey. They were depressed. They were slaves in Egypt. They were getting worked. But when things don't go our way, we look back at the negative thing that we came from, and that negative thing becomes positive to a certain degree, and it doesn't make any sense. But let's continue on. Where am I at? Yes, verse 14. And behold, ye are risen up in your father's stead, an increase of sinful men, to augment yet the fierce anger of the Lord towards Israel. Verse 15 says, for if ye turn away from after him, he will yet again leave them in the wilderness, and ye shall destroy all this people. Y'all, 6 through 15, these verses right here. Moses questions their request, and I'm not on that. Am I on that? Yeah, he rebukes them again. Y'all, where am I at? I'm so sorry. I don't know where I'm at. Lord's anger was kindled against Israel. Yeah, okay. I'm so sorry, y'all. And behold, I read that one. I'm on verse 16. And they came near him and said, we will build sheepfolds here for our cattle, and cities for our little ones. But we ourselves will go ready armed before the children of Israel until we have brought them unto their place, and our little ones shall dwell in the fenced cities because of the inhabitants of the land. So now that Moses rebuked them and he was angry at them, it's like, you're going to let all your brothers go to war and you're just going to stay here for your cattle? So now the tribe of Reuben and Gad, they says, you know what? We will, if you let us have this land for our cattle and for our families and stuff, we will go before the rest of the tribe to war. So now they're standing up saying, hey, we're not going to let our brothers go along. We'll go before them. This is our land we got before them. So we're going to go before them to make a way for them to come. Verse 18 says, we will not return unto our houses until the children of Israel have inherited every man his inheritance. And the inheritance is the portion of land that they were to receive in the promised land. And verse 19 says, for we will not inherit with them on yonder side Jordan or forward, because our inheritance is fallen to us on this side of Jordan eastward. That's the land that they wanted, y'all, with the cattle. So if they already had their land, they knew, and they were basically affirming to Moses, hey, we know we're not going to get no land in the promised land because this is our land right here. If, Moses obeyed to it. And verse 20 says, and Moses said unto them, if ye will do this thing, if ye will go armed before the Lord to war, and will go all of you armed over Jordan before the Lord, until he hath driven out his enemies from before him, and the land be subdued before the Lord, then afterwards ye shall return and be guiltless before the Lord and before Israel, and this land shall be your possession before the Lord. So this is basically saying, Moses is saying, hey, if you're going to do this and you're going to go to war for the Lord, hey, when you come back, this land will be yours. Everything will be okay, and God would not find you at fault for anything because you went to war for him and you went before your brothers. Verse 23 says, but if ye will not do so, behold, ye have sinned against the Lord, and be sure your sin will find you out. Nothing is done in the dark that God don't know about, y'all. Verse 24 says, build you cities for your little ones, and folds for your sheep, and do that which hath proceeded out of your mouth. And the children of Gad and the children of Reuben spake unto Moses, saying, Thy servants will do as my Lord commandeth. So they're agreeing. They're going to do what they say. And they're going to do what Moses says. Verse 26 says, our little ones, our wives, our flocks, and our cattle shall be there in the cities of Gilead. But thy servants will pass over, every man armed for war before the Lord to battle, as my Lord saith. So the wives and children and the cattle and all that, they're going to stay back. But the servants and the rest of them are going to go over before to war. Verse 28 says, so concerning them Moses commanded Eleazar the priest and Joshua the son of Nun and the chief fathers of the tribes of the children of Israel. And Moses said unto them, if the children of Gad and the children of Reuben will pass with you over Jordan, every man armed to battle before the Lord, and the land shall be subdued before you, then ye shall give them the land of Gilead for possession. But if they will not pass over with you armed, they shall have possessions among you in the land of Canaan. And the children of Gad and the children of Reuben answered, saying, as the Lord hath said unto thy servants, so will we do. We will pass over armed before the Lord into the land of Canaan, that the possession of our inheritance on this side Jordan may be ours. They really wanted that land, y'all, because that was some good land for all the cattle that they had. And 16, we just went over, I went to verse 32. Yep, let me put a little marker right here, y'all. So these chapters, the verses, Reuben and Gad promises to fight alongside Israel to help conquer Canaan until everyone received their inheritance. They wanted to prove they weren't abandoning Israel. So I want y'all to note this in Numbers chapter 32 verses 23. Where is it? In verse 23 where it says, but if you will not do so, behold, ye have sinned against the Lord, and be sure your sin will find you out. That right there, keep your promise. Your sin will find you out. You can't say nothing, and us as in general, we can't say things out of our mouth and we don't follow through with them. And then we read this about the previous chapter of keeping your word. So moving on to verse 33, and Moses gave unto them, even to the children of Gad and to the children of Reuben, and unto half the tribe of Manasseh, the son of Joseph, the kingdom of Sihon, king of the Amorites, and the kingdom of Og, king of Bashan, the land, with the cities thereof in the coast, even the cities of the country round about. And the children of Gad built Dibon, and Adaroth, and Aurora, and Athroth, Shophan, Jazar, and Jogbehah, and Beth Nimrah, and Beth Haran, fenced cities. These are all the cities they built, and folds for their sheep. And the children of Reuben built Heshbon, and Eliah, and Kirjathaim. I'm probably just destroying these words, y'all, but Lord bless me. Verse 38 says, and Nebo and Baal-meon, their names being changed, and Shibmah gave other names unto the cities which they build. And the children of Mishar, the son of Manasseh, went to Gilead, and took it, and dispossessed the Amorite which was in it. And Moses gave Gilead unto Mashur, the son of Manasseh, and he dwelt therein. And Jair, the son of Manasseh, went and took the small towns thereof, and called them Havach-Jair. And Noba went and took Canath and the villages thereof, and called it Noba, after his own name. With these verses right here, y'all, we know that their request was granted for them to occupy that land. So they went and they took and they dwelled in there, and they made the cities that they wanted and guarded their sheep. Moses gave the land east of the Jordan to Reuben and Gad and half the tribe of Manasseh. That was the third tribe I was trying to remember earlier, the Manasseh, after they agreed to fulfill their promise. And we know that, God honors those who keeps their commitment. Moving on in chapter 33, y'all. Chapter 33, verse 1 says, these are the journeys of the children of Israel, which went forth out of the land of Egypt with their armies under the hand of Moses and Aaron. And Moses wrote their goings out according to their journeys by the commandment of the Lord, and these are their journeys according to their going outs. And they departed from Ramesses in the first month, on the 15th day of the first month, On the morrow, after the Passover, the children of Israel went out with an high hand in the sight of all the Egyptians. For the Egyptians buried all their firstborn. Now, high hand, they went out good. The high hand is God. God protected them. Everybody knew that God gets all the glory for this. So Israel went out on a high hand. Okay. Verse 4. For the Egyptians buried all their firstborn, which the Lord hath smitten among them. Upon their gods also the Lord executed judgment. And the children of Israel removed from Ramesses and pitched in Succoth. And they departed from Succoth and pitched in Etham, which is the edge of the wilderness. And they removed from Etham and turned again unto Pihahiroth, which is before Baal-Zephon, and they pitched before Migdol. And they departed before Pihahiroth and passed through the midst of the sea into the wilderness, and went 3 days' journey in the wilderness of Etham, and pitched in Marah. And they removed from Marah and came unto Elam, and in Elam were 12 fountains of water, and 70 palm trees. 70 palm trees. A score is 20, so if it's 3, that's 60 plus the 10, 70 palm trees, and they pitched there. And they removed from Elam and encamped by the Red Sea. And they removed from the Red Sea and encamped in the wilderness of Sin. And they took their journey out of the wilderness of Sin and encamped in Dophkah. And they departed from Dophkah and encamped in Alush. And they removed from Alush and encamped in Rephidim, where was no water for the people to drink. And they departed from Rephidim and pitched in the wilderness of Sinai. Ooh, Sinai. Yeah, it's Sinai, y'all. And they removed from the desert of Sinai and pitched at Kibroth Hattaavah. And they departed from Kibroth Hattaavah and encamped in Hazeroth. So these are all the things that Moses is writing down. He's writing down their going outs. So in verse 18, and they departed from Hazeroth and pitched in Rithmah. And the rest of the verses, I can just keep going on reading, is just saying where they departed from and where they pitched at. And I don't want to keep mispronouncing these words, so I'm not going to read all of these. I am going to skip to verse 38. So I'm going to verse 38, y'all, because it's basically Moses was recording their journey. And Aaron, the priest, went up into Mount Hor at the commandment of the Lord and died there. In the 14th year after the children of Israel were come out of the land of Egypt, in the first day of the 15th month. Now, Aaron was 123 years old. So he was 123 years old when he died at Mount Hor. And the king Arad, the Canaanite, which dwelt in the south land of Canaan, heard of the coming children of Israel. And they departed from Mount Hor and pitched in Zalmanah. And they departed from Zalmanah and pitched in Punan. And then they departed from Punan and pitched in Oboth. And I'm skipping forward, skipping all where they departed from. And I'm going to go to verse 49. And they pitched by Jordan from Beth-Semoth even unto Abel Shittim in the plains of Moab. Now, all these verses, 1 through 49, y'all. Like I said, that's Moses writing down Israelites' journey, where they pitched, where they came from. Now, the verse that I wanted to talk about was, it was a verse I just read where they're, verse 14, when they had no water for the people to drink. We're going to talk about that in just 1 second. But basically with these verses, Moses recorded every place Israel traveled from Egypt to the plains of Moab. God wanted future generations to remember his faithfulness throughout the journey. So Moses recorded it. And when we remember what God has done for us, it strengthens our faith. That's what it does. Now, when there was no water, the people, the Israelites, they complained again. And if I'm not mistaken, verse 14 is when God commanded Moses to speak to the rock. But Moses was angered at the Israelites for their continuous complaining and ungratefulness that he hit the rock with his staff. And Aaron was right there with him. So during that time, God was angry at Moses and Aaron for that. So Aaron, he passed on Mount Hur, and y'all know during that time, God told Moses that, hey, you're not going to inhabit the promised land. From doing that, he wanted Moses to speak to the rock, not show that, oh, the Israelites made him that mad to where he had to hit the rock. But anywho, I don't want to go over something that I already talked about, but I'm just giving a reminder, and hopefully that'll help. So, verse 50, y'all, and the Lord spake unto Moses in the plains of Moab by Jordan near Jericho, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, when ye are passed over Jordan into the land of Canaan, verse 52, then ye shall drive out all the inhabitants of the land from before you, and destroy all their pictures, and destroy all their molten images, and quite pluck down all their high places. And you shall dispossess the inhabitants of the land, and dwell therein, for I have given you the land to possess it. Verse 54 says, and ye shall divide the land by lots for an inheritance among your families. And the more ye shall give, the more inheritance, and to the fewer ye shall give the less inheritance. Every man's inheritance shall be in the place where his lot falleth. According to the tribes of your fathers ye shall inherit. But if ye will not drive out the inhabitants of the land from before you, then it shall come to pass that those which ye let remain of them shall be pricks in your eyes and thorns in your sides, and shall vex you in the land wherein ye dwell. Moreover, it shall come to pass that I shall do unto you as I thought to do unto them. Now, reading this, verse 52, 50, whatever the verses it is, y'all, the Israelites, they were instructed to drive out all the inhabitants of the land. Good morning. God bless you too, Keena. Yeah, they were to drive out all the inhabitants of the land. Why keep them there? Why? Because they're just, you can let one stay and they could be like the leaven in the bread, which is yeast. When you get one small bit of yeast, yeast spreads and corrupts the rest. So God wanted them to destroy the pictures, destroy all their molten images. Their molten images were the idols that they were worshiping, false idols, y'all, and pluck down all their so-called high places. And God also commanded them to remove the Canaanites, which were the inhabitants, and destroy their idols, tear down all that stuff, y'all. They were told to do that because if they let them in the land, the nation would influence Israel to sin. So, moreover, verse 56, when it says, shall come to pass that I shall do unto you as I thought to do unto them, that's God saying, if you don't do what I tell you to do, if you don't destroy every inhabitant in this land, break down all the molten images and do all this, whatever I was going to do to the inhabitants myself, I'm going to do to you. So, y'all remember, God was upset with them because the Midianites that they were supposed to destroy, they kept the women. They kept the women. And verse 55 says, if you won't drive them out, and I'm skipping, I'm not reading this verse verbatim, but the ones that they let stay, they will remain. They shall be pricks in their eyes and thorns in their sides. If you have a prick in your eye, that would be very annoying. It's just like you can't blink. You got to keep on rubbing it. So basically, the people will give them hard times. And it won't be no kumbaya moments like that. Y'all, these verses right here, it's just, chapter 33 is just remembering God's faithfulness. That's what he wanted the Israelites to do. That's exactly what he wanted them to do. That's why Moses wrote down their journey. He wanted them to remember everything he has done for them. Because y'all know the Israelites, they kept forgetting I don't think they forgot. They were just ungrateful. They lacked faith sometimes, and they let fear control them rather than depend on God. The God that brought them out of Egypt, the God that made manna rain from heaven, the God that made water flow from a rock, the God that gave them meat when they were begging for it and complaining about it. So the key verse, I believe, is verse 55. What you refuse to remove today may become tomorrow's temptation. And that's that's how I'm gonna end this with the 3 chapters. What we refuse to remove today can become our temptation for tomorrow. And, you know, be that as it may, there's a lot of temptations, y'all, in this world. But what did Jesus say he would do? He said that he would always give us a way out for whatever temptation it is. So we need to stop putting off today for what we can, stop putting off tomorrow for what we can do today. I believe that's the saying, y'all. We have to get rid of some things in our lives. You know, sometimes we try to hold on to everything because we think, well, I don't want to hurt their feelings, or what if this and what if that. Let it go. Let it go. But we always remember where God brought us from and be grateful and give him the praise. And that is it for today. Tomorrow I will go over chapters 34 through 37. And yeah, 34 is 37, y'all. That's the last chapters in the book of Numbers. And then we're going to move into Deuteronomy. God bless y'all. And remember, Jesus loves you. And no one in this world, there's no one in this world that Jesus does not love. Jesus loves you, and it's never too late to return back to him. Y'all have a blessed day. How do I move this? Yep, go.